But suddenly, an old man appears behind her. He grabs her, snatches the gun away, but then he lets her go. This blind man is Phoenix's dad, who's been training her for survival, and she just failed to. This is the same blind war veteran for the first movie, where we found out that his son hit and run. Hungry for revenge, the man kidnapped the driver and tried to artificially inseminate her, but the woman died before she could produce a new daughter. This girl has no idea who her father really is, and it's even worse than you think. They head back home where the girl gives her and she says that she's not her mother. She wants to know if she got the white streak in her hair from her mom or dad, and the man confirms her mother had one too. She's never seen her mom because all of their photos were destroyed in a house fire, but she gets the feeling that her father is not Okay, don't let this fool you into the haircut and dad bod, because this guy is a total psycho. We don't exactly know where this girl came from, but if it had anything to do with his make a new daughter revenge plot from the first movie, then this guy is a plot. Now, we have to give the man some credit. Trying to teach you survival skills, which is great. But there's one really critical flaw in this guy's private boot camp. Running from dogs and climbing fences are one thing, but making smart decisions that don't get you killed are something else entirely. If I were him, the first thing I would be teaching her because this town is an absolute hole on the outskirts of Detroit. Last year alone, the city's murder rate went up 19%, and shootings went up a full 53%. Those numbers are staggering, and since they're right at the edge of one of the most dangerous cities in the country, this is a much better thing to train her for instead of a silly dog chase. I also would have been studying the psychologist Laszlo Polgov, who raised his daughters to become the most famous female chess prodigies the world has ever seen. He used their entire childhood to prove that if you took the right approach, you could turn any healthy newborn into a genius, and he did this 3 times in a row. Now, chess doesn't provide any direct survival skills, but critical thinking and predicting someone's decisions are definitely a plus when your life is in danger, and that kind of lateral thinking can be applied to education as well. There are a lot of things a war veteran could teach you about reading other people's behavior to anticipate a threat, and it would have been much more useful knowledge to a girl this age. She could also use those skills to play strategy games online, because sometimes it's important to just enjoy yourself without being judged. Like with today's sponsor, MPL Mobile Premier League. MPL Mobile Premier League is an amazing play-win-money gaming app that lets you actually win real cash. It has all your favorite games in one place, so you can decide which game to move. If you're extra competitive, you'll love playing head-to-head directly against other players or in one of their multiplayer tournaments. Choose any game to play and receive cash rewards if you win. If you love basketball like me, there's nothing like the feeling of watching the ball sink into the hoop every time you shoot. Hoops is a basketball game where you and your opponent shoot hoops on the same court and compete for a higher score. Being able to play all day and win money at the same time is awesome. I found patient were the most important elements in order to win, and users get matched against other players based on their skill level, so you can still win even if you're getting started. So ensures that users' gameplays and payments are protected. All the cash won by use for keeps and can be easily withdrawn to PayPal or bank account in a very reliable and smooth process. Download now for the link in the description and get a $5 bonus when you sign up. You can even get up to a $20 bonus reward for each friend you invite to join the app. The MPL app is available for free on both the iOS App Store and for Android on the MPL website. And it's just a great app to play, compete, and enjoy your favorite games, and earn money while having fun. Share this app with your friends, but be 18 or older to play. Later that day, this woman Hernandez comes to pick up some plants and asks the blind man if his daughter will join her today, but he refuses to let her out. The woman warns him that if he doesn't, freedom, he is going to go down, and the man will win. Back inside, he tells his daughter she can go into town, but they have no idea this trip will get someone killed. The woman takes the girl out while she makes deliveries around town, and they stop at a convenience store before heading back home. Inside the restroom, Phoenix hears washing her hands, but looks up to see this man staring at her. She introduces herself as Raven, and the girl is freaked out. But when she tries to leave, he blocks the exit. Lucky for her, the dog comes to her rescue, startling the man, and he backs away to let her through. But as she walks past him, he runs his finger through her hair, letting her know he'll be seeing her again very soon. Back to the van, he tells Hernandez about the creep in the restroom, but the two have no idea they're about to leave this man to go to his home. After dropping Phoenix off, the woman is driving back into town when she finds the road is blocked by a truck. She honks the horn, but there's no response. Out of her van to find out what's going on. Approaching approaching the vehicle, she asks the driver to move out of the way, only to find it's the same. Flashing her gun, he tells her to off the road, and he says he will, but the man is acting suspicious as now. Getting back into her van, she stows her gun in the glove box, but this was her biggest mistake. The woman is about to call the cops when a man suddenly appears behind her and strangles her with a belt. She tries to break it.
Earn cash back where your spending is trending. And City Custom Cash Card.
A lot of male nurses that workplace, and they were finding real purposeful work and some excellent job security, high earning potential.
I never really saw myself working in this type of industry, male-dominated industry, but I really do enjoy it.
So I ended up being recruited in my recruit class.
Medical sales for 7 years. Career path. It's so easy to get all my history and work on my schedule.
Here I am in my late 20s, and there is no way that I'll be successful in college. But if I ever wanted to be promoted, I had to get my degree. And I ended up graduating the top of
Environment.
So it really made a huge impact for me to be able to get through the program, start working as an RN with no student loan debt. I thought the degree and the license would provide me I imagine what it actually has given me these past 4 years. I would not be in the position I am right now had it not been for the technical colleges in Georgia. Stability, security for my family, the ability to earn a good salary, and to never have to worry about a job again. The technical college system in Georgia, I tell everybody it changed my life.
So the man takes out a hammer and brutally beats her to death. Okay, let's first look at what this woman did right. When she approached the car, she took her gun with her because she knew this was a potential threat. She also wrote down the license plate and was about to call 911, but she knew the way to ignore signs that this was clearly an ambush, and it got her killed. The first thing to notice is that the car's lights are on, and we can they're also called mental emotional structures, which is the best way to stop if you wanted to intentionally block the road. She should have realized that without being active, and present day. This woman is a military Now, we can't blame her for not realizing there was someone in the van, because when she looked inside the truck, it seemed peaceful. There's no reason to think there might be a fifth criminal, but she allowed herself to be complacent and put her gun back in the glove box, which was a terrible decision. Lastly, the death, she still had a way to survive the situation. A veteran like her should know that when someone attacks you while you're in the driver's seat, the first thing you want to do is sink into your chair and put your hands up to protect your head. This is a common defense tactic for Uber and taxi drivers who are being threatened. But instead, you can see that this woman had absolutely no defense. Now despite this, she still has control over the situation because her foot is already on the accelerator. If I was being I would have wanted to crash the road. He notices that the dog still hasn't eaten. Something's wrong, and he goes back inside to grab his coat, never sensing the thugs standing in his kitchen. Their guns are drawn, but the men quickly realize that this old man was planting the back of Edward for his coat. The man goes back outside to search for his dog and finds him dead on the ground. He pulls a bullet that was lodged inside, and the man realizes someone shot his dog. Upstairs, Phoenix notices the lights have been turned off and immediately realizes that a stranger is inside of her house. She crawls under her bed, right right before a man enters the room. Suddenly, he lifts up her mattress, but the girl has already disappeared. The burglar never notices it under her bedroom, and that's when the girl has a brilliant idea. She throws her watch into the bathroom, and the beeping alarm distracts the man to help her crawl away unnoticed. Making it all the way downstairs, she sees that the back door has been left open and quietly sneaks her way over. But just as she reaches it, a bullet goes flying into the wall. Slowly turning around, the girl finds a thug pointing his gun straight at her, and Phoenix here has just lost her best chance at escaping. Okay, this girl got caught, but if you were paying attention to the details, you would have realized that Phoenix here has a very high IQ. First of all, she immediately realized enter the house because her dad is blind and doesn't need to turn on the lights. It might seem obvious, but not such that information to reach the conclusion that your house is being invaded is incredibly fascinating from someone's array, and she acted on it herself. Then, when the man lifted the mattress, she had already moved to a different and less obvious hiding spot, so she's already one step ahead of this guy and predicting his decisions. Now, even though she found another place to hide, it doesn't mean that the girl... She knew that the longer she stays in the room, the more likely it is that this man will find her, and that means we can't just wait for him to leave. This is why turning her watch into a timed distraction was brilliant, because it means that she had already considered all these outcomes and figured out that this was her best strategy. Instead of being complacent and getting caught, she thought ahead, and it got her all the way to the back door. This is exactly how you should be thinking when there's a threat like this. And if her dad wasn't a control freak, she would have had a phone like a normal 13-year-old girl and could have called 911. The burglar steps in front of the door to block her exit. Suddenly, the blind man reaches through the glass and grabs it before snapping the gun out of his hand. The thug swings his hammer into the blind man's shoulder, but he doesn't release his grip. Frightened, the girl runs into the basement and tries... But another burglar slings it open and knocks her down the staircase. He follows the girl to the basement, but she manages to reach this huge steel box and locks herself inside before he can stop her. Meanwhile, the blind man has escaped to the garage, where he tries to superglue his wound closed, but one of the burglars has followed his trail. Noticing a bloodstains on the door handle, he pulls it open and walks inside, turning on the light to look around the room. Seeing a figure on the bed of the truck, he pulls the dust cover off, but nobody is there. Suddenly, the veteran comes out of hiding and attacks him, but the burglar fires his gun, alerting his friend nearby. The man comes to the garage before he made the noise, only to find his friend crawling towards him on the ground. His mouth and nose have been super glued shut, and he's suffocating to death. Acting fast, he grabs a screwdriver and stabs a hole in the man's cheek to let him breathe. He can't understand what kind of psycho would do this, but when he turns around, he finds the answer to his question. In front of him is a plaque with the pin of a Navy SEAL, and as this guy here cuts his mouth back open, they both instantly regret stepping foot into his house. Okay, as cool as it is to superglue somebody's mouth and nose shut, it's also pretty stupid. If you consider what it takes to actually make this happen, it means the blind veteran had to hold the man down, then squeeze out a bunch of epoxy and keep him there while he waits for it to dry. Practically speaking, it would have made a lot more sense to just shoot the guy in the face and walk away. Since the criminal had already fired his gun, the man knew someone would come to investigate, so taking your time to superglue this guy's mouth shut is pretty short-sighted. The better strategy would be to lure out members of the group one by one and ambush them, because this blind man will easily get killed if he's facing the whole group at once. A trail of blood is a great trick to draw them in. Then, by alerting others with gunshots, we can bait more of them to investigate and kill them off one by one. If the veteran had executed this plan more effectively, then both of these men would already be dead. Now, even though he let both these idiots survive, this doesn't take away from the fact that the veteran is really dangerous. This pin here is the special warfare insignia that you get when you become a Navy SEAL. What they didn't notice was the other ones below it. This one is a commendation, which is awarded when a soldier has significantly impacted a military operation. This one is a Marine Corps Expeditionary Medal, which you can earn for completing a mission that was top secret. Since the veteran is roughly 70